Keeping venomous reptiles is an unforgiving hobby, requiring proper training and lots of experience. One simple mistake can be the difference between life and death. Remember, the most venomous snake in the world is the one that just bit you. There are no venomous snakes with training wheels. Just because you see Viperkeeper handle snakes a certain way does not mean you should try it too.
Well, people ask if I have any rattlesnakes left in the collection, and I actually have only one, but he's only here temporarily. I raised him from a baby. It was a gift from a friend. He's going to a zoo, and he's gotten quite large, too large for this. He's quite an aggressive feeder, and if you use your fingers to open the bin, you're likely to get chomped. I know in my intro to all the videos you see me doing that, but I was expecting those reactions, and I took the risk of doing that because that makes things a little bit more exciting. But the cost of crow fab at thousands and thousands of dollars to treat a bite by this snake is not something I really want. So animals that use grow fab are pretty much out of the collection because of the high cost. You can see he's very unhappy with the situation. I don't usually bother him, and as you can see, he's not chasing me, he's trying to get away from me. So we're moving him over to bigger quarters. Oh, and he's not going to be cooperative at all, are you? So we just simply euplex him, put him in his new quarters, and put the cover on so everybody can see. For their size, pygmy rattlesnakes will give you a very, very bad bite. You know, in discussion with venom experts, they said if these were the size of, you know, large copperhead or a smaller rattlesnake, you know, like a timber or an eastern diamondback, these would be absolutely lethal snakes. Interestingly enough, the babies, and including pygmy rattlesnakes of this size, are invertebrate experts and will actually eat a number of centipedes, which I consider to be worse than the snakes as far as being nasty and venomous. And actually there is a documented photograph and paper of a young pygmy rattlesnake who ate a centipede, and the centipede chewed through the snake's abdomen, and they both died in the process. Another interesting thing about pygmy rattlesnakes is the ones in the wild in Florida are infested with pestomids, which are parasites that will invade the respiratory tract and kill them, and humans can also be infected with pestomids. So we're really careful with keeping even captive-born animals under a heavier quarantine. You know, everything that they touch, their substrate, the hooks, everything, water dishes, get really disinfected well before they get used on another animal. So he's a bit unhappy. I'll see if I can find a hide to stick in there really quick, and then go slide him into the rack across the way where we have the larger bins. Alright, so we like to be creative here at the lair, so I use this plastic end cap for a piece of tubing that I found at Home Depot, and I just simply cut out an opening for them to go into, and this acts as a suitable hide, which I'll sort of, you know, I should have put this in before I put the snake in, but sometimes the brain doesn't work terribly well. So at least he has a place to, you're interfering.
Yeah, well, you were holding it up and it was nosing about to get out, so.
All right, well.
The only reason I ever interfere is because you're endangering yourself.
Okay, well, I didn't see him trying to nose out. That's as good as it gets for him. So now I'll go home, go across the way and slide him in and let him calm down. All right, so here he is at his new residence. And this is the beautiful thing about the Uplex, is you're totally safe from encountering the animal. And he will reside there until he moves on. Now he's stopped drinking. I filled his water dish and he moseyed on over, but couldn't figure out that there was a place that he could get a drink, so I stuck the water bottle nozzle through the opening here and he started drinking. But now that he's seen the camera,
He was still slurping a little bit.
he was weirded out a little bit, and what I'll do is I'll shut this just to impede his progress if he decides to try to come out. I wish I could leave it open for photography purposes, but being that close to such a lethal snake with unprotected fingers is just not worth it. So you got a good slurp. Now you figure out how to get into the water dish yourself, because I can't help you beyond that.
Off he goes.
Yeah, maybe if he's still thirsty, maybe he'll figure it out. But he's still got water in his mouth, as you can see. Come on, suck that drop back in there. You know, these are from arid areas. These are from Pakistan. Pakistan, you know, doesn't necessarily get a lot of rain where these guys come from. So they don't have a misting system like other snakes. My friends have trouble keeping these in very humid places like Florida. So they really don't do that great in high humid environments. So I keep them sort of on the dry side. If they're going to shed, I overflood their water dish and make sure that there's some humidity in the cage. But that's why they're in this room, because this is the room that has the more arid land snakes. Oh, of course, you're going to extend your fang and you're going to turn away so we can't see them. And typical snotty little snake that I have. It's like, no, I'm very shy. I will not open my mouth and let you see what I've got in store for you if you mess up. Yeah, you. Yeah, I know. I take care of you really well. You get lots of nice treats to eat. Don't you, huh? Was that tasty? Yeah, I treat you specially. Well, because you don't go spicy like the others. You do occasionally, but not nearly as much as the girls do. All right, was that tasty? All right, so chill out. I'll feed you later. Oh, so here's the silly male coral cobra. Oh, his strike is on target today. He was captive hatched here in 2019.
And he's filled his bowl up with substrate again.
As usual, so yeah, we'll come back later and swap out his substrate. We want him to eat first before we disturb him. These guys have quite variable venom. I got bit by one a number of years ago, and my finger just was swollen. It was quite painful for a few days, whereas another person here in Pennsylvania was bitten by the exact same species, ended up spending a few days in ICU with full-blown neurotoxic venom symptoms. There's no specific antivenom, although recently a paper was published saying that South African polyvalent has some efficacy, but you really have to weigh the risk-benefit, because giving antivenom is not without potential complications, and anything from a mild rash all the way up to anaphylaxis and death. So for these elapids that have sort of the milder venom, unless it was a child or something, you probably wouldn't want to give antivenom. And of course, a smaller child, gets bit by one of these. It's a smaller body. It has a, fairly decent dose of venom. The effects are much more pronounced in a smaller individual than a big bloke like me. Now the female, who's already at the front door here. Hello? Oh, you shed. Okay. And you're being shy because the big eye is looking at you. You won't be so shy when you realize that there's food on your doorstep. Oh, there we go. Yeah, they really sort of bulldog it. Okay, I got the shedding out, which is a good thing. I used to throw the sheds on the floor, but that used to scare the crap out of us, thinking there was a snake on the floor. So I just toss it in the trash. People used to ask, and I used to send them sheds and stuff of different animals, but I don't do that anymore simply because I don't have the time. And PETA and Humane Society US have planted some sheds that they obtained from somebody in strategic locations, and then claims that there's a gaboon viper or something on the loose in the community, and this raises trouble for venomous keepers in the area. So unfortunately, I don't distribute any of my sheddings. Alright, I pulled that piece of substrate out of her mouth. Although they eat substrate in the wild, they eat substrate here in their cages. I've never ever, or once in 20 some odd years or so, have I had an issue with substrate where I actually had to go retrieve it. I forget what species it was, but the piece of substrate got caught crossways in the gut, and I used these long forceps. Once the snake was restrained, we lubricated this. I reached down into their gut very carefully, pulled it out, and everything was fine with the snake. But generally speaking, eating substrate is not an issue.